Hi, Mark here. Trust you're well. Have you been out with your cameras this week? What have you been photographing? Please let me know in the comments because I'd love to understand what you photograph, why you photograph it, and how that affects you in your photography, whether that's emotionally or your skills. And that will help me understand my photography and also my research as a part of being a PhD candidate. So, for this week's Photographer Unscripted, I'm going to talk about tripods. Prickly subject for some, because there's consequences of owning tripods and monopods, and we'll talk about both. And I'll try and answer some misconceptions and theories and thinkings, or at least from my point of view. And there is no right or wrong answer. So, should you own a tripod? And what is the difference between a £100, $100 tripod and a $1,000, £1,000 plus tripod? So the first question I'd love you to ask yourself: what are you photographing? Do you need a tripod, and why do you need a tripod? You need to answer that question, why you need a tripod, because there are consequences in owning a tripod. What is a tripod for? A tripod is for holding your camera still. That's all it's there for. Okay? So many people are tied up into the argument that a picture must be pin sharp and in focus. Well, I would ask you to have a read of this book. It's I'll link it in the description. Why it does not have to be in focus. You can pick it up on your marketplace, whether that's eBay, Craigslist, Facebook, second-hand bookshops. Go and support your local bookshop. You can pick them up for, I think I paid £3 or £4 for this one, so under $5. It's by Thames and Hudson, if I remember rightly. Absolute fascinating reading, why a picture doesn't need to be in focus. So, a tripod is for keeping your camera still. That's what a tripod's for. And the specifications of your tripod will be different compared to your equipment. For example, weight capacity, but also the application you want it for. So, do you want it for architecture? Do you want it for wildlife? Do you want it for landscapes? Do you want it for travelling? So if you take lots of different narratives, genres of photography, you may need, in my case I have 4 tripods sitting here, different tripods for different eventualities. So, a tripod is for you to keep your camera steady. So when you shoot a long shutter, the camera doesn't move. You get a pin sharp image if you want a pin sharp image. So, what does a tripod allow you to do? Hold your camera still. Yeah? But it allows you to capture, without moving the camera, motion, water, clouds. And this is just one example. There are several examples that we can look at why you would want to keep your camera still. So your camera is going to stay still. You can capture motion. That is the primary reason we have a tripod. To have a long exposure. There are other reasons, and that's for another day. But what are we photographing? Are we photographing a landscape? Are we photographing macro? So we're getting close to the ground perhaps and photographing fungi or flowers or something like that. Are we a travel photographer? Are we photographing architecture? So all these questions will relate to our photography. And we haven't even mentioned the word video. So let me just show you what I have and my thinking. I am a visual practitioner into audio. I capture stills, video and audio to communicate emotion. That's what interests me in my studies. And I write in publications, websites, and produce my own books that I publish. So I travel a lot. So my next big journey, I'm going to stay in Malta for a month. But I like traveling via the train. I could fly, yes, it's 2 hours, but you're in this tube and there is no enjoyment or emotion. I'm a big guy. So you leave the UK at 15 degrees Celsius and you arrive in Malta at 40 degrees Celsius and you're there for a couple of weeks. Oh, it's hot. First 3 or 4 days you are not enjoying the travel. So I travel by train a lot. I capture lots of narratives via train. Street photography, cityscapes, the journey of the train, sounds, audio, video, and my body acclimatises on the 4/5 days that I travel across Europe by train to Malta. Getting to the point, size and weight is really important. So this is quite old, this one now. This is the carbon fibre Peak Design travel tripod. They've brought out a new range now, but they're slightly bigger. And the reason why I got this was, firstly, the weight. Carbon fibre, very light. Peak Design make good products as a general statement, and most of them are lifetime guarantee. But it was the footprint. That's the size of a sports bottle. So it fitted in the rucksack very easily. So weight and size, important. But also the equipment that I'm carrying on here, I think the weight capacity is 15 kilos. But when I travel, I take crop sensor. So my equipment isn't that heavy. Perfect with the accessories, the claws I've got with this, and the other bits and pieces accessories. Absolute brilliant little tripod. You pay for the design, you pay for the weight, the lightness. They do an aluminium version, but this is the carbon fibre version. You've got to bear in mind, I'm travelling with one small rucksack that's got all my camera and audio equipment in there. 3 or 4 lenses, 2 bodies, laptop, all the audio mics, everything, and a tripod. And then my day-to-day things that I need is in a small 20-25 litre rucksack that I'm carrying. My other bag is a international Peak. Both of those are Peak Design. No, not. They're a Think Tank Photo. I have a pull-along suitcase. That's all my. What's my laptop? A couple of hard drives, but all my clothes are in there for the trip. So I'm travelling light. That's why I have this. Brilliant. Consequence, it's not the cheapest tripod in the world. Well, none of my equipment are cheap because I'm a working photographer. I need this to work 100% of the time, all the time. So these are around about £500. I think you can get them a bit cheaper, £500, $500, something like that. There is an aluminium version, which is a lot cheaper. I've had this, to say, several years, well worth the expense. But sometimes I'm shooting still mirrorless, full frame, but I'm shooting with larger, heavier equipment. Now, this is my next size of tripod up. I have been a Gitzo tripod user for years. And when I say years, 30 years. This actually is around about 12 years old. The tripod itself, not the head, that's called support gear. So from roughly here downwards, that's roughly 10 years old. Okay. What I love about good, well-made tripods, whether it's really right stuff, whether it's Peak Design, whether it's Gitzo, other brands are available. You can buy the individual parts if they are not lifetime guaranteed. Okay? Every year I take this apart once or twice, or all my tripods, and I clean them thoroughly. Graphite grease. I look at all the brackets, and actually what I do is each time I clean them, I put in an annual order for replacement parts. So in my box that I have, I've got all the parts. So when I take them apart, if there's something that I'm not happy with, I've got it already. I order a replacement for next year. Or next time I'm going to clean. So I've got spare feet, I've got grips that are inside these, and I take this all apart and I service it myself. What's great by doing that is you understand how your equipment works. So when it's minus 40 degrees Celsius, you're in Iceland or in Alaska, you know exactly how this works and how you can actually use it with your gloves on. So this is carbon fibre. Everything's replaceable. So if you damage a leg, yeah, use a carbon fibre again, you can get a replacement leg. With the cheap tripods, it's a consumable, disposable item. You can't do any of that. So you might be buying a cheap tripod for, let's say, £200, and I consider that cheap. And you might use it for a couple of years, 2-3 years, and it wears out, you need broken a bit or whatever. You've got to buy a new tripod. Well, as I say, this is 10 years plus, and this is, all my tripods are 10 years, over 10 years old, carbon fibre. And I had the equivalent models, aluminium, and then carbon fibre came out, and they were 10, 15 years old. I sold them and I all bought carbon fibre. So we have our legs. There's two types of extensions. So you've got the twist or you've got the camshell, personal choice. I prefer the twist. Peak Design goes with camshell. It's a tripod. So well worth the money in doing your homework in weight capacity, weight of the tripod, height of the tripod, and then we come on to support gear. Now, if you're not already, I would highly recommend you invest in what they call Arca Swiss. That is the standard of the size in here of the plate. Okay, so the dovetail plate, and it's a standard. And a lot of them will say Arca Swiss compatible. So these heads are really right stuff heads. And I've had them for years. I think this is a BH30 if I remember rightly. I've got two of those with different heads on the top for different types of photography. So I use this for video if I'm taking two tripods with me. A little bit heavier on the ground. I've got spikes that go in the end here so it sits in the ground. I don't need a video head, that's another thing, another sport gear. But I use the same heads, which I absolutely love. And yeah, perfect. So 10 plus years old that one is. Well worth it. So these are all the mountaineering range. The reason why is the clip here to make the leg go like this is slightly bigger, so you can use it on cold days. And I take the center column out when I usually travel. I don't normally use a center column. Why? Because it could put sway a fraction of a millimeter in there, but I very rarely have a center tripod. I take it out. So this is the same head, but it's got a panning head on the top. So I can pan the action so it stays flat. So different tripod. This is a slightly bigger tripod, Series 3, but it's longer legs. So it's about 10 centimeters taller, this is my tripod that I go to. If I'm shooting full frame, 99 times 100, I will pick this tripod up. It has an 8 centimeter clamp. All mine except the big one are 8 centimeters, and It's just built light, but it works. End of subject. It just works. I know when I pick it up, it works. So yeah, Really Right Stuff American. I buy through B&H Photo because Really Right Stuff, I stopped shipping to the UK when we moved out the EU. That may have changed, and that's how good it is. They may ship now. I don't need to keep buying the equipment. That again is 10 years old. I service it, I look after it, I clean it, I can send it back to Really Right Stuff if I need to. It's a one-time purchase. That's a consequence of buying cheap. It doesn't last long. And on that subject, think about this. You've bought a Canon R5, R6, a Nikon Z6, Z7, a Z8. You've spent £3,000, £4,000, £5,000 on a camera. Then you've got a £2,000 lens on the end. Are you really going to put it on a tripod that's cost you $200, £200? Well, that camera's going to end up on the floor. So it's a false economy. Yes, it's all insured and so on, but that doesn't help with the enjoyment of the day. A lot of people don't consider your head, the head that goes on top of the tripod. You get lens creep, or lens creeps to do with the focusing. But when the weight, it's not balanced right, the head can't support the weight. It slowly does this. The lens goes down. So investing in your gear, really, really important. And then my last tripod, this is a Series 6. This is a big bugger. BH55 with the 10 centimetre clamp on it. Again, that head's nearly 20, 25 years old, still made today. Perfect, beautiful, silky smooth. I look after it, I clean it, I put the cover on the top all the time. This is a 12-foot tall tripod. I use it for architecture. But actually what a lot of times I use it, and these are leg warmers, these are, so on real bitter cold days, I can pick it up and it's slightly warmer than holding on to the carbon fibre. What's really good about this, when I use this, so I'll use this for a heavy lens or I'm doing architecture. But if I'm going to go do landscape, and I know that I'm going to Scotland or I'm going to Dartmoor, one of the national parks, and my front leg could be, I'm shooting downhill. The front leg will be extended quite a way. Quite a way. So I can still shoot high up in the air, but one of the three legs are maybe double the distance, maybe, because I'm on top of a rock and it needs to go off the rock. So that's another reason why I have this really, really long tripod, 12 foot tall, this goes. And if I'm shooting in the street, I'm standing on a ladder, I'm 6'4". So again, that ball head, that BH55 is well over 20 years old, still made today, basically the same engineering. Why fix something if it's not broken? No center column on that one, and I use it, as I say, architecture, landscape, and my long 600mm lens on there because it takes the weight. So that's tripods. What's the consequence? About £7,000 there. $7,000 just in tripods. Consider used. A lot of people buy tripods because they think they're going to want the tripod. They never use it. Look in your used marketplace. Look for boxed, mint condition, and you'll probably pay about half the price. So what's a monopod for? So I have three here. 3 monopods, different types of monopods. So, how do I use a monopod? Well, it's for putting the lens on it, but I extend them and put them up in the air, or perhaps down low, because we can switch the digital file, can't we? I can sync it to my mobile phone, but it's for putting a longer lens normally on there, and you extend the foot and the leg, and you can just hold it. So great for wildlife, great for sport. So why the two different ones? 400mm 2.8 is heavy. It needs to be thicker. Okay, it's got a different plate on the top, see the different sizes. This is for my 70-200, or perhaps I'll put the camera on there because this is Arca Swiss, it's all compatible. I can put any camera, any body, any lens on any tripod, any monopod, because it's all compatible, it's all Arca Swiss. And if I decide to change brand, as long as it's Arca Swiss, so for example, that's a Peak Design clamp, that's a Really Right Stuff clamp, that's Arca Swiss compatible. So they all fit. So I'll put on there my mirrorless and away I go. Okay, I'll put on there 70-200 and that's perfect. About 15 kilos, 20 kilos that'll take, no problem at all. But if I'm using my 600mm or my 400-8, I'll use this. Remember, 600mm and 400mm is roughly £15,000 dollars. Then I got a camera, which will probably be my Z9. That's another £5,000 dollars. That's £20,000. When I do that, I want to make sure the camera doesn't come off the end. And it's just that little V bracket. Also, think about the L brackets or camera brackets or lens supports. What you're using. Go for a good quality. I always have the clamp, all my clamps apart from that Peak Design one, they're all Really Right Stuff. I've invested. If I'm going to buy £5,000 worth of camera, I'm not going to put an eBay $4 clamp on the bottom. Okay, because that's my weak link. If it comes off here, that's the weak link. Give you a little tip. Put your camera on the clamp where the ball head and so on, and pick the camera up. Make sure there's no noise. There's no rattle. It's tight. And if you can pick it up, then your camera's not going to fall off. Okay. I have one last monopod, and this is no longer made. There was two versions. It's a Gitzo Mono Trek, and it's a walking pole. Okay. You can pick them up used, which I've got a couple of spare ones, about $100 when they were about $250. But you pull the end off and you have a little 1/4 inch thread on the end and a little ball joint and so on. Put that back on the end, and it's now back to a walking pole. So all you do is you twist and pull and away you go. So I'll use that when I'm trekking. When I'm out walking, rather than taking these, I'll actually take this and then I'll have a clamp that goes on the end of this and I'll just put my bracket on the end. There we go. Monopods, tripods. Consequence, a lot of money. But the positive is you get the photograph that you intended to take, that visual thought of that photograph, your camera is still, and they're one-time purchases. As I say, those 3 Gitzo tripods are 10 to 20 years old, and they're still going strong. There's nothing wrong with them apart from the wear and tear marks. They're as working as new because I service it, I look after it, and it works perfectly. And that's why I invest in good quality tripods. Now, consequences, cost. The other consequence is you've got to carry them with you. And that can be frustrating. So find a way to carry it easy. And when I'm using just the camera, I actually put it across my shoulders. So I'll put the legs right out and I'll throw it over the top of my shoulders. So it actually sits behind my head. And I'll just hold it like this and just wander along. Ever so easy. So that's my thought on tripods. I could not be without a tripod. I absolutely love tripods, but I use them. They're a tool, they're an instrument to capture and communicate the emotion of what I'm seeing and feeling. I hope today has been of help, and if you would love to tell me about what you've been photographing recently, leave it in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, where most weeks Photographer Unscripted will be my thoughts on a photography piece of news or piece of equipment I own. Just something photography. Stay safe and happy photography. Bye for now.